We wanted to bring in Chris McDaniel. He's been on before. He's Mississippi State Senator, and he is running against Tad Cochran, U.S. Senator. Been there for 4 decades. Chris McDaniel has been on, and he has been endorsed by FreedomWorks, one of the few that has gotten that. And he is a guy who really knows Obamacare quite well because he led his state against Obamacare as a state senator. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, Glenn. Thanks for having me. Doing well.
What did you lead in Mississippi? What did you guys end up with in Mississippi against Obamacare?
Oh, goodness. We filed a lawsuit back in 2010. My law firm and we did it pro bono. The governor was our client and 10 Mississippians. We filed a class action lawsuit and joined the fight on behalf of all Mississippians against Obamacare, and naturally fought as hard as we could. And we're very, very disappointed in Justice Roberts' decision. But we're still fighting every chance we get, whether that is to resist expansion or resist the implementation of the exchanges, whatever the case may be. Obamacare has to be completely repealed. And so every chance we get, we fight it, and I look forward to fighting it on another level next year.
So tell me, Hobby Lobby arguing in front of the Supreme Court today, why would you say this, that every American should pay attention to this and understand this case?
Religious liberties are fundamental, as fundamental as they get. A person's conscience, what we believe, it is among our most protected rights. And so we're watching this case very closely because it is a large case in regards to religious liberties. And if an American citizen has a deeply held religious belief, it is absolutely not the right of the government, none of the government's business, to force that American citizen to violate those beliefs. And so to me, this case is very simple. To the extent government tries to violate those beliefs or coerce a person to doing something they find objectionable, it is absolutely unconstitutional. And we've seen evidence of that in lower court rulings, and I'm hoping the Supreme Court finally has a glimmer of common sense and rules correctly in this regard.
I've never understood the difference between freedom of religion and freedom of worship. FDR tried to change it to freedom of worship. And, I had a lot of friends who were, the same friends that would say, we're a republic, not a democracy. And at the time I'd go, yeah, I got it. But they're the same friends that have said there's a huge difference between worship and freedom of religion. The president is pushing for the freedom of worship. What's the difference?
Well, one is practical application. One is more deeply held than that. I mean, naturally, the religious beliefs that we hold may not always entail active or proactive worship. But at the same time, to be forced to do anything against our deeply held beliefs is on its face unconstitutional. If you really still believe in the First Amendment as it's written, and there are those of us that still believe that way. These amendments mean exactly what they say exactly what they mean, and they must be defended as absolute prohibitions against the government taking these actions, whether it's the First Amendment, whether it's the Second Amendment, or whether it's the Fourth Amendment, or the rest for that matter. And the extent is this. We just have to learn again to stand up for our rights. They're being eroded. They're being taken away. And we have to find strong, courageous people that will say, you know what, we're not going to go down this path any longer. We're going to stand up to this government and stand up to those who would dare reduce our rights.
The New York Times came out, a New York Times reporter came out and said this president is the most dangerous president on the First Amendment in our history. He said he is a powerful force against freedom of speech. The Vatican came out yesterday and said this president is anti-Christian and bringing hostile anti-Christian and anti-life viewpoints to the table. I know that you authored this Student Religious Liberties Act. What exactly does that do?
It, just as you said earlier, it protects those students' religious liberties. A child does not lose his rights when he walks into the schoolhouse door. He still has the right to declare his faith. He has the right to pray. He has the right to do work product or present projects on Jesus, for example. But a lot of teachers, misconstruing the Establishment Clause line of cases, have suppressed that speech. And these children have every right to possess speech and to render that speech as they see fit. So what the act did, it clarified it. And it protects Mississippi children to make sure they do not lose those rights when they walk into the schoolhouse door.
We're talking to candidate Chris McDaniel, who is running against Thad Cochran in Mississippi. Chris, how did we get to this point where everybody believes, not just teachers, but administrators, superintendents, governors, they all believe that your religious liberty ends at the schoolyard. How did we get here, and how do we go back?
Liberals have used fear very successfully. Fear of lawsuits, fear of being ridiculed, and that's the way they play the game. The Supreme Court has assisted in that regard because since 1947, the great majority of the Establishment Clause line of cases has been very confusing, contradictory, and very difficult to follow. So what the liberals do, they have their friends that write these nasty, threatening letters every time a child prays or every time someone tries to fight for religious liberty in the school. And most of the time, administrators back down because they're fearful of the lawsuit or fearful of repercussions. Well, how do we stop it? How do we fix it? We grow a backbone for a change.
Well, hang on just a second. We have in Illinois, we reported on a story on Friday, yesterday, the whole country was banging the drum, at least I should say the Tea Party side of the country, banging the drum, where there was a textbook in Illinois, and it was in a grade school, and it defined the Second Amendment as an amendment that allows people to carry certain kinds and certain types of weapons as long as they're registered. Well, we got a hold of the school. The press has been breathing down everybody's throat. I mean, again, the Tea Party press has been breathing down these people's throat. And the response today from the administration was there are many different books about the Second Amendment, and this one is technically true, and we're going to keep this book in. So they're not afraid. They're not. You can stand up all you want, but they're not afraid.
Well, the left certainly isn't. The left has, they're not terribly afraid of fighting, I'll tell you that. But take that book, for example. They understand that if they can infiltrate the young people of this country and change their thought process, that the next generation will fall victim to this liberal ideology. That Second Amendment is absolutely an individual right we all possess, and it's not subject to the limitations they suggest in that book. But if they tell enough kids that, if they repeat the lie enough, then people begin to believe it, and ultimately people don't fight as aggressively for their rights given the opportunity. But people in this country, they have to learn, conservatives particularly, how to fight again, how to have courage again. When you receive a threatening letter from the ACLU or a threatening letter from some liberal instigator, meet them in court. Fight for your beliefs. Stand strong, because for too long we've been browbeaten into submission. And those days have to end if we're going to save this republic.
Chris, where is Mississippi on is Mississippi a Common Core state, and where do you stand on that?
Yeah, we've been fighting Common Core ever since we discovered exactly what Common Core was. We formed a conservative coalition in the state Senate here, and we've done everything in our power to either stop it via legislation, to pause it, or to defund it. We had a fight last week. We fought for 2.5 hours on the floor to defund Common Core. But Glenn, because of the powers that be, because of the establishment, because of the money that's being brought to bear, we were only able to garner 11 votes to stop it.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, but we're going to keep fighting. It's a nightmare. It has to be stopped, and we're going to fight Common Core every step of the way.
How are your polls doing, Chris?
Oh, they're outstanding. They're outstanding. They show the race basically tied right now with about 20% undecided. And, Glenn, we're going to win this race and replace a liberal to moderate candidate or senator with one that is a constitutional conservative, so long as the people get involved. And that's what we're trying to do. We're waking up the people all across the state, all across the country. Mississippi is ground zero for the conservative movement right now. We're very, very excited.
When is the primary?
It's June the 3rd.
June 3rd. So, gosh, it's just too bad people don't know how to get involved with helping you. Chris,
well, goodness, I'll be happy to give you that information.
All right. You mean there is a way they could help?
No, Pat, really?
It's sounding like
wow, okay.
It's incredible. It's a place. It's called a website. You've probably heard of those things.
Yeah, Al Gore invented one of those things.
Yeah.
Al Gore did invent the website, if I recall. It's McDaniel2014.com. Okay, let's go over that for a second.
All right, let's look at
over
that. Let's look at that again.
McDaniel 2014.
McDaniel2014.com.
Wow. And what do you do there? You like?
Oh,
Are there games you can play, or
There's certainly not a place where you could donate if you wanted to donate money.
no, we have video games on the side. It's called a donate button. Absolutely.
Wow.
all right?
And we
Wow.
encourage people to push that donate button as many times as they can if
Right.
they want to see a real conservative in office. Absolutely.
Chris, I wish you the best, and it's good to have you on. And I know you're following the Hobby Lobby case as we are today, and following it with prayer. But we
We
thank
are,
you.
Glenn. Absolutely. And thank you so much. It's a real honor. It's always a help. And remember, McDaniel2014.com.
Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Isn't it great how many real quality candidates?
I was just
quality
thinking. Look
conservatives
at.
there are.
Can you imagine having just the guys? There's more out there,
Oh,
but
yeah.
just the guys that we have had on. Can you imagine?
If they all win.
We would have 5, just off the top of my head, 5 that we've had on that are dirt strong, that will stand up behind Ted Cruz, stand up behind Rand Paul, Mike Lee. I mean, you don't have 3 anymore.
You got 8.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
Because look at the difference Cruz, Lee, and Paul have made.
Yeah.
You send the cavalry in to help them out, and who knows? Maybe we get this thing back on track.
You get the if you get the Republicans to take the Senate,
Jeez.
and that's what Nate Silver has said. Is it Nate Silver?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what Nate Silver has said. Have you seen, Stu, what they're doing to him now?